were the questions for now.
These are the questions. Then we start the next part of our lecture. I already told you about what the Stoic said about the cosmos in its outer and inner form. I already explained to you how a cosmos is born and is dying, and now we look at the Palingenesis, how a cosmos is reborn. And the idea of re-embodiment, popularly explained as reincarnation. Reincarnation is in fact not the right word for it, but re-embodiment is a better term for it. If you look very carefully, you see that Plato talks about it. In his time, it was forbidden to talk about it in the mystery schools. And Plato did that in Meno 81, and in the Phaidon. There he talks about the fact that the soul is born again in a new body and a new life. And the Stoics explore that further and explain that further. And what can we learn from the fact that you will be reborn next life? And many of our visitors, many who listen to our lectures, already know that reincarnation exists. And let that never be a reason for you, when you have not yet explored that idea, to blindly believe it. You have to find within yourself, is there something within me that is more durable than my body and my emotions and my experiences in this life? And only when you have found that within yourself, something universal, something that never changes, and I give you a hint, your conscience is in fact your anchor and is in fact a relatively universal part of you that is not changing while your body is growing older. That is always the same. And that gives you a hint that there is more within you that survives the death and that is born again. If you see that, then your life changes. For what are the conclusions you can draw now? That means that you can build a future perspective, that you have always a future, for there will always be a next life. And if your life at the moment is perhaps unbearable in all its suffering, if you are now in a state of despondency, will this ever end? Then that disappears, because there will always new opportunities. And if you suffer from the feeling of failure, with the idea of re-embodiment, of reincarnation, Palingenesis, that feeling disappears, for there will always be new chances. And if you live with the intense sadness because you lost a dear and loved one, that sadness disappears. For in the next life, you will always have new encounters with old friends, your family, your friends the people around you, you will see again in next lives. Your friends, but also your enemies. And that means that you will never have to have regrets because you couldn't finish something. Because in next life, you meet each other again and you can do a second effort. And in the life after that, a following effort. You can always have an effort to amend hostilities again, to become friends again with your enemies. And especially in a time when in Central Europe a war is a very horrible reality, and it is so easy to hate the enemy, and perhaps that hatred will be part of you till you die. Now you know that in the next life you can transform that in a better attitude to each other from both sides. And if you want to know more about that, read our peace special of our magazine Lucifer the Lightbringer, and we hoped in that special to explain this further. So despondency disappears, the feeling of failure disappears, and the intense sadness of losing someone disappears, for there will always be new possibilities and new encounters. That is the richness of the Stoic philosophy, and that is so much richer than the somewhat degenerated later Christianity, where the idea of reincarnation had been cut out of what is taught to the followers of that religion. For I can assure you, in the Vatican, they know that reincarnation exists, only they do not tell it to the people who come to the churches. This is the enormous value of Stoicism. And I want to help you with a quotation of Etty Hillesum. 4 months before her death in a Polish concentration camp, she wrote in her diary this: I shall try to convey to you how I feel. She wrote it to someone else in a letter. But I am not sure if my metaphor is right. But when a spider spins its web, does it not cast the main threads ahead of itself and then follow along them from behind? You see how she describes it? Wonderful. The main path of my life stretches like a long journey before me and already reaches into another world. It is just as if everything that happens here and that is still to happen were somehow discounted inside me, as if I had been through it already and was now helping to build a new and different society. You see how she, already 4 months before her death, tries to live in her next embodiment, in the next society. She prepares herself for a next incarnation. Life here hardly touches my deepest resources. Life here in the concentration camps. Physically, perhaps, you do decline a little, and sometimes you are infinitely sad. But fundamentally, one keeps growing stronger. You see how you can grow stronger by taking into account your next life in the midst of your situation in this life. What does she say then? I just hope that it can be the same for you and all my friends. We need it. For we still have so much to experience together and so much work to do. And so I call upon you, stay at your inner post. And please do not feel sorry or sad for me. There is no reason to. This is someone who knew that she was dying in a few weeks or months. And this is what she says to her friends. Stay at your inner post and please do not feel sorry or sad for me. There is no reason to. This is greatness of soul you can reach when, for instance, you hear from your doctor that you only have 3 or 4 months to live. And at a certain moment in our life, most of us reach that stage. At that moment, you can talk to your friends the same as Etty Hillesum did. These are the 3 most important lines of teachings of the Stoics. The all, Zeus, God, however you want to call it. The way how the universe is born and dies again. And the way how we and the universe are cyclically, constantly reborn. Those 3 things are very important. And perhaps it's good to skip the crasis dialou and nous and to look at the idea, the teaching of Eudaimonia. And that is something that is so wonderful if you understand that, if you realize that it is correct and that you make it a part of your own life. Eudaimonia, wrongly translated by the silly word happiness. We keep to Eudaimonia. We are Stoics now. Eudaimonia, what is that? In Greece there was Epicurus. And Epicurus gave his definition. He was not a Stoic. He said, the happy life is the one which is most pleasant. And you and I can immediately draw the conclusion, pleasant? Do I search for a pleasant life? Yes. Do I search for life that suits me? No. We want to go deeper and more. And Zeno gave a definition of eudaimonia that is the most mystical. He says, eudaimonia is living in agreement. And he didn't say anything more. Living in agreement. And then his successor, Cleanthes, wanted to be more clear, and he said it is living in agreement with nature. He already fills in the thing you have to be in agreement with, nature. And then his successor, Chrysippus, says living in accordance with experience of what happens by nature. And you see back a little bit in accordance with, and then nature, but then living in accordance with experience of what happens by nature. To me, it is a little bit difficult to put that in my own life. What must I think of that? And then the later Stoics, what did they do? They started to have debates with other groups. And in their debate with the Platonic school in Athens, they made another definition. I read it for you. The rational selection of the primary things according to nature. And I don't know how you react, but I am totally honest in my reaction. I lost it. I really cannot have an idea what this will mean. And this is exactly what happens in politics. When there is a new law and they describe the law, and they say, let us look into that. And then one party and the other party and all other parties say, no, that's, the word must be that. And after many, many meetings, the end result is something that is unworkable because it is artificial. This is an artificial definition. And everyone who searches for truth recognizes this, and therefore I ask you, do what we did. Go back to Zeno, the founder, and his teachings. Zeno said, Eudaimonia is living in agreement. Agreement with what? That is what you have to find yourself. And we can do that by looking inward. And why are we looking inward? Because of the word eudaimonia. Eudaimonia is not happiness of joy or joy. Eudaimonia rises far above happiness or joy. Eudaimonia is a complex word of eu, and that is the good. Yeah? In English you say you in euphoria, and that is also eu at the beginning. Yes, eu, and that is good in English, in Greek. And daimonia, there you see daimon with the third part, ia. What is really there is good daimonness. That is the real definition of eudaimonia. And what does that mean? It means that you have a crystal clear inner knowledge, an intense awareness of being in harmony with your inner daimon. And that is eudaimonia. Being in harmony with your inner daimon, with your inner source from which you streamed out and to which you stream in again. And this is the most mystical form of eudaimonia, living in agreement. And I hope I can take you with me away from that silly idea of happiness or pleasantness or even joy. What is the daimon? Where do we find the daimon explained? That is with Socrates. Socrates talks about his daimon, and as Zeno borrowed so much of his teacher Socrates, he was inspired by Socrates. He wasn't a physical teacher, a physical student, because he lived later, but he was inspired by what Socrates said. Let us see what Socrates said, and I give you the explanation of Gottfried de Purucker. Listen. Gottfried de Purucker explains Daimon as follows. He talks to his students. You will recollect, doubtless, that Socrates, a wise and unfortunate man, used to say to those around him that his daimon, his inner monitor, never told him what to do, but always what not to do. This daimon was, to use a figure of speech, the voice of the higher ego, which in great men is often very strong in its energy, and in some hypersensitive constitutions, human beings, is often spoken of as a voice. In constitutions in human beings which have been trained, it is recognized that this voice of the silence is not really a voice, which is its effect sometimes on the physical brain, but that it is an inner urge, flashes of light, and inner vision. It is the beginning of the vision sublime. What is Gottfried de Purucker telling us? That our daimon is something that we experience of the whole influence through all those elements up to the heart of the universe of what we really are. In the heart of the heart of the heart of ourselves, we are thuis, we are that heart of the universe, but it is not here and there. There are intermediate phases. And the first inner part, when we go inward, we experience as a voice. And after that, we experience that influence of that Zeus part of us as a light. And in the end, we experience it as the vision sublime. You see how it works. Only the first step is a voice of the silence. And if you see how it works, then you know that Eudaimonia in its first phases, when you just go inward, is being in harmony with that influence of your inner heart of the universe, which you experience as a voice, as sound. And in an article we already gave to our students, but perhaps we can repeat that again, where Gottfried de Purucker talks about conscience, about your conscience. That is in fact your daimon. That is in fact that with which you can have conversations. When you can talk, is it morally right to do or morally wrong? And if you follow the advices of morally right constantly in your life, then you experience what Etty Hillesum experienced. And I really want to read that for you. Very well then, she says. This new certainty in 1942 that what they, the Germans, are after is our total destruction, are the Jews. She was a Jewish young woman. So very well then, this new certainty that what they are after is our total destruction, I accept it. Stoa, I accept it. I know it now, and I shall not burden others with my fears. I shall not be bitter if others fail to grasp what is happening to us Jews. For half of the Dutch population did not know it and did not want to know what happened with the Jews. I work and continue to live with the same conviction, she said, and I find life meaningful. Yes, meaningful, although I hardly dare say it so in company these days. Living and dying, sorrow and joy, the blisters on my feet and the jasmine behind the house, the persecution, the unspeakable horrors. It is all as one in me, and I accept it all as one mighty whole, and begin to grasp it better, if only for myself, without being able to explain to anyone else how it all hangs together. Have I really made so much progress that I can say with complete honesty, I hope they will send me to a labor camp so that I can do something for the 16-year-old girls who will also be going. When I tell others fleeing and hiding is pointless, there is no escape, so let's just do what we can for others. It sounds too much like defeatism, like something I do not mean at all. And listen now, friends, for that continuous, radiant feeling inside me, which encompasses but is untouched by all the suffering and all the violence, I cannot find the right words. And this is one of the most important ideas of this evening. What she says, that continuous, radiant feeling inside me, which encompasses but is untouched by all the suffering and all the violence. That, friends, is an example of what Eudaimonia means. And when you in your life try to find the insecure security of, how must I say that, of comfort, of lack of danger, if you try to flee like a tortoise in its shell, if you do that, then you can find comfort and you call it happiness, but it is an illusion. For outside your shell, the world rages on, and you don't do what Etty Hillesum did. Go with the girls in the camp to be there for others. And that radiant, continuous feeling is the real Eudaimonia. And if you understand this teaching of the Stoa, and you read the books of the different Stoic philosophers, if you know that, then you understand what Stoicism has to tell us about peace of mind in turbulent times. That is not trying to flee in meditation, mountains, or as Marcus Aurelius says, in silent places to retreat, but you stand in the middle of the hell on earth, and you are there like Marcus Aurelius did, Seneca did, and Epictetus did. And then you can be something for others. And that is what we tried to give you this evening. I hope you listen to all the Stoic ideas another time as well. For so many ideas, there are too many ideas to have a clear vision after hearing it once. I hope that you enjoy the Stoic depth of philosophy as much as we do. And there are also other branches of the Theosophical tree, and therefore after next week, our study meeting, there will be a lecture on another branch, a Chinese branch, the branch of Lao Tse, where you can find out how the peace of mind, the equanimitas in Chinese mystical culture can be found. So you see, it's not only the Stoa, but there are so many other branches to learn from. I think we reached the end of the lecture. The intermingling of all beings and the fact that our nous stands central, we take into our study next week. And I look at Erwin and I look at you. Let us end this evening by answering your questions, and the next 3 minutes you can form your questions, and I hear them from Erwin. There you are again. Erwin, are there questions?
Yes, a few questions. The first is, does every human have a conscience?
Ah, lovely that that question has been asked, because the idea of conscience is not always understood in our Western society, and everywhere we meet people who ask, what on earth is my conscience? Theosophy has very profound answers on that question, and especially for that reason, we organized last year, January, a series of 4 lectures about especially conscience. And that can be the basis of the answer of this question. Look at those lectures if you like to do that. And the question, has every human being a conscience? I can only say, yes, of course. But that is not an answer, that is only a word. But why has every human being a conscience? Because he is a human being. And what is the definition of a human being instead of other beings? That is that we are able to think. And not only to think on material things, how to start your car and how to pay your bills, but we are able to conclude from the things that happen around us, to conclude, to draw spiritual lessons, to draw moral lessons for this is something I never want to do again, or this is something what someone else does to us, and because I suffer so much by that, I decide never to do that to another person. You see, every day we learn lessons, wisdom lessons, And those wisdom lessons we carry with us in our heart. And when we die, it becomes and remains part of that inner soul of us that survives death and is reborn again. And by being reborn every time, and we already do that for millions of years, in this way you build yourself a wisdom heritage, and that is your conscience. So, by definition, a being that is able to think builds his conscience. It is another thing, are you willing to listen to your conscience? And that is the problem in life. Not that you don't have a conscience, but you don't listen. You don't ask your conscience, is this morally right to choose? The moment you start doing that, your conscience will speak louder and louder and louder. That daimon within you will become more and more and more your, how must I say that? A part of you that cannot be thought without you. You will always have your conscience on 3 millimeters of your asking soul, what do I have to do? And your conscience comes immediately. Yes, but that's a training, and that you find in those 4 lectures. I hope this is enough as an answer. Are there more questions?
Yes, one more. Do I understand it well that the Theosophia sees peace of mind, Eudaimonia, as an instrument or condition to help?
Eudaimonia is never an instrument to help, but the voice of your conscience, the inner voice which you experience at first as a voice and later as a wonderful vision, that influence from the heart of the universe into your heart as it is now, that makes you decide to help your neighbor as if that neighbor is yourself, because your neighbor is yourself. You are Zeus, but your neighbor, in essence, is Zeus as well. So every living being on this planet is you, and you are one with every living being. So if you help others, you don't help others, you do your task in that great whole of Crasis diolu, in that web of life of which you are part and another as well. You are all that web. And if you see that, when you answer the inner urge to help, to be there for other living beings, at that moment your inner heart, your inner Zeus part, is giving you an influence that you experience as that, how must I say that, that radiant feeling inside me, as Etty Hillesum said. So your experiencing eudaimonia is in fact not the reason, but the result of being there for others. I hope I make it a little bit clear. I could talk hours about this, but we don't have those hours this night.
So you're saying that eudaimonia is not the instrument, but actually we are the instrument, and as a result of us being the instrument of our inner daimon, and what the Daimon represents, the Zeus part,
Yes.
the whole living being we are part of. If we are being an instrument of that, the result is eudaimonia
Yes.
as peace of mind. Yes. Okay.
Eudaimonia is the result of you acting selflessly, of you forgetting your own personality and living for what I said, for the people around you, for humanity, or for all life. Everyone has its boundaries and he can expand those boundaries, but you do what you can. And then, when you are in harmony with that Zeus part within you, with the cosmos, that you sense as eudaimonia, being in harmony with my daimon. I hope you try it out. Try it out. Are there more questions?
Yeah, one more. We just came in because we're talking about the Zeus part. Is that also the perceiver in us? Could you say that?
Yes? You want to know more about the perceiver in us?
That is what the questioner asks.
Can you repeat the question?
So is that Zeus part, is that also the perceiver in us?
No, no, no. The Zeus part is the heart of the universe and has no attributes. Doesn't see, doesn't hear, all those senses, but is there. And from that heart of the universe, life pulsates. And senses are what you have. You have outer senses with which you see the world around you, yes, and you have also inner senses. And those inner senses are the senses of that part of you, what we are calling the reincarnating part. That part is seeing, in fact, how you work in harmony with Zeus. That is observing what you do. And your outer personality, when that part of you, that childish one life part, that part of you, when it looks around itself, is only asking itself, what do people say about me? Do I have success? Am I safe in a group of people? Yes, are constantly reacting as your cat or dog. No, that is not a good combination. Is constantly looking at the world from its personal perspective. And your inner observer looks from your daimon part, yes? From that part of your soul that survives and is born again. If you want to know more about that, our course, our new course, Universal Wisdom, that is a combination in a new form, you can say a re-embodiment of our two old courses we have for years, but in a more recent form. There you learn to discover all those different parts of yourself and see what those parts do. For we also have within us a warrior. That is the part that overcomes all, how do you say that, kleinmenselijk? Oh, I ask too difficult questions. No, all those personal, not so high human habits of us. Yes, I hope this helps enough as an answer. Yes, try our course. Yes, when does that course start? I never know it.
In Dutch, the course will start soon, but in the English will start, I guess, and we will try to start it as quickly as possible.
Okay, you hear it.
Next season.
If you want to follow that new course in English, the only thing you have to do is to sign in on our website and then the course starts. You see how simple it is. And that's the nice thing with Zoom. You don't have to travel by plane or train to come in the Blavatskyhouse. We talk to you even if you live in Japan or California. We do that.
Okay, thanks. Those were the questions.
All the questions. I hope that when you subscribe to follow the study meeting next Sunday, then you receive a 20-page long file with practically everything Gottfried de Purucker explained in his books, in all his books, about the Stoa. And I made 5 clusters of ideas in exactly the form I gave it to you, the 5 main teachings of, and that makes it so easy. If you don't have time to read all those 20 pages, then go to one teaching that speaks to your heart and read what he says about it, and then look inward. For there is no one listening to our lectures that has not already experiences in life from which he has learned. And that is to me the great value of those study meetings, that people bring in their wisdom for the rest of the group. And we all learn from that. And I want to end this lecture with the words of Marcus Aurelius about happiness. And you deserve to hear it. Listen. He says to his student, "Your suffering is not caused by a force outside you that determines what happens, nor is it caused by alternation and change in the circumstances in which you find yourself." You see how wise he is. Then what is it caused by? By that within yourself which determines whether something is bad. So leave that judgment behind, and everything will be fine. Even if your poor body, which is closest to you, is covered with cuts and burns, or is consumed by festering wounds, still keep silence in that part of you which judges it. That is, make no division into good or evil. And this, friends, is a golden advice. And try it out and you will experience it as well. Whatever happens in your life, try to silence that part of your personality who says, "Oh, that is nice and this is suffering." Silence that, and then at that moment suddenly you can bear any negative circumstance in your life. It is wonderful if you can feel that. And he continues, "Be like a rock in the surf, upon which the waves keep crashing." You see, be like a rock in the surf. There he stands. All around him, the turbulent waters calm down. How unfortunate I am that this has had to happen to me. But no, rather I am happy. For though this happened to me, I am unharmed. As a rock in the surf, I am unharmed. Not broken by the present, nor fearful of the future. Can it be called an unhappiness when something fulfills the purpose of being human? Does what happens to you constitute a hindrance of being just, magnanimous, deliberate, truthful, full of reverence, wise and free? And can it keep you from the other qualities that fulfill human nature? And we all know the answer, no, of course not. What happens in your life? It can never change your possibility of being just, of being truthful, of being wise and free. Nothing can change that. And those certainties, thought of for more than 2,000 years, is a gift to you tonight to think about it and to use it in your life. And I do hope to exchange experiences next Sunday. And perhaps it's good to end tonight as we always do. We always end with the Gayatri from the Rig Veda, where you find everything Cleanthes said about Zeus in his hymn. You can find it as well. Listen. O thou golden sun of most excellent splendor, illumine our hearts and fill our minds, so that we, recognizing our oneness with the divinity which is the heart of the universe, may see the pathway before our feet and tread it to those distant goals of perfection, stimulated by thine own radiant light.